welcome to Tuesday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic, where today we're going to be taking a look at the puzzle on the screen, which is called Round the Houses, and it's by Tallcat. Now, Tallcat, I happen to know, is jolly tall and extremely clever, and Tallcat was born some years ago on this very day. It is Tallcat's birthday, so happy birthday, Tallcat. I hope you have an absolutely brilliant day with, of course, lots of cake, and I hope you'll get to watch me solve this puzzle, which has been recommended to us a go-go. All Tallcat's puzzles get recommended because they're that good. But I've read the rules of this one, actually, just before I turned on the webcam, and this is a really, really cool rule set. We're going to have to draw a loop in this grid to solve it. So we shall get to that in a moment or two. Or am I meant to read the rules out first, I think? Oh, I think I am. I think that's the new style that we decided on, isn't it? So I will read you the rules, but we'll kick off with that. So the rules of the puzzles are as follows. Normal Sudoku rules apply. Connect some cells in the grid to form an orthogonally connected loop that must pass through every cage in the grid exactly once. The cage totals given are the sum of the digits on the loop in each cage. At least one cell in each cage is not visited by the loop, and digits may not repeat in cages. So what we're going to need to do to solve this is to turn on our ability to draw loops, which luckily the magnificent programmer Sven has incorporated into the software. So what you do is you click the cog wheel on the right hand side, make sure... Oh, why is my pen tool not enabled? What's going on? My pen tool is always enabled. Yeah, but you definitely need to have that enabled in order to solve this puzzle, at least if you want to be able to draw loops. I'm just going to take a quick look down the options here and make sure that there's nothing else that's sort of strange. I mean, the thing is, there's so many options nowadays. I wouldn't really even know what I'm meant to be looking for, to be honest. Yeah, it's probably all good, isn't it? Oh, the thing I do want to make sure is that it's not going to tell me if I've got conflict checks and things like that. I don't think I have. So let's click off that. Now, this in theory should allow you to click on, there's an icon that appears on the right side of your grids now, and you can draw loops in the grid. It's very intuitive. You sort of just click and drag, and you can do all sorts of things, and this should help us to solve the puzzle. So we'll revisit the rules in a moment or two. I want to kick off with a few other announcements though before we actually get to solving the puzzle. The first thing I want to mention is the extraordinary puzzle that we solved yesterday on the channel. I think we called the video "The Best Thing to Happen to Sudoku This Year," and that was with good reason. Check this out. Check this out. This is this puzzle called Rush Hour Sudoku by Chameleon. And I believe there's a board game called Rush Hour. I didn't really appreciate that. But the idea is that you have to slide these cars around the grid, which you can do in order to position them in places where you can actually solve the puzzle. So you can see at the moment the puzzle is broken. There are too many sixes in row 4, so you have to sort of adjust for that and try and figure out how to position the cars such that there aren't 2 1s in the first row. It is a fascinating and wonderful puzzle, and you must try it if you haven't had a go already. So I wholeheartedly recommend that one to you. Now, what else did I need to mention? Lots of things. I've got some birthdays to do. Birthdays that are not Tallcat's birthday. So Lily, you've turned 12 today, Lily, and I know this because your dad David wrote to us. Now, David did describe the cake you're having today as having the shape of chickens, which struck me as very odd, but it's going to have a lot of icing, so that'll make up for the chicken shape. And Lily, we hope you have a brilliant day, obviously. Next, Michael's got a big birthday today, turning 40, a high school chemistry teacher over there in Kentucky who's trying to start a puzzle club for the students at his school. So Michael, I wish you all luck with that, and I hope you have a great day today. And then it's William's birthday as well. Now, William, I think we know as the constructor Itrio. I might be wrong about that, but I think William constructs under that pseudonym. And William assured me that the cake is covered today because he's having triple chocolate cream cake. Yes, that does sound like you are covered. That sounds very nice indeed. And then finally, David, over there in New York. David, your friend Crystal says you created a monster when you sent her the Miracle Sudoku video a few years back. And she wishes you a very happy birthday today, as do we. And then the only other thing to mention is, of course, the Patreon reward. Oh, well, I mean, yeah, let's just talk about Patreon for a moment. Patreon is our Sudoku club, where our monthly reward for April was the Sudoku Skunkworks Nightmare on Sudoku Street, which has been going gangbusters, getting all sorts of fabulous comments. Excuse the Moonlight Sonata. Well, you can never really excuse the Moonlight Sonata, can you? One of my favourite pieces of music of all time. And in fact, I have to digress, because one of these Twitter things came out earlier, and the Twitter thing was, what is the best line in any song? You know, what's the best line of music ever written? A lyric, I think, is what I took it to mean. And there were some absolutely fantastic ones, and I chimed in with I think my favourite line, which is that there were ghosts in the eyes of all the boys she sent away. They haunt these dusty street roads. They haunt these dusty beach roads. They haunt these dusty beach roads in the skeleton frames of burned out Chevrolets, which of course is from Thunder Road by the boss Bruce Springsteen. Absolutely, it's so evocative. There were some other good ones there, though from other people. So that they were only slightly worse than the one obviously I suggested. You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave. I mean, that is a good line, isn't it? But yeah, let us know your favourites. If you think there's a clear winner, if you think you can beat my Thunder Road one, do let me know in the comments under the video. But I wanted to just mention Demono's monthly reward, which is coming up at the start of May, because both Mark and I, we've seen the puzzles already, which are fabulous, as you'd expect from Demono, but the puzzles are accompanied by a novella, and both Mark and I, you know, I want to be honest about this. We thought, you know, the novella was likely to be sort of secondary to the puzzles, but we both started reading it yesterday, and we're about 50 pages in, and it's really, really, really good. It's exciting. I want to know what happens. So this is completely brilliant. I mean, it's a total departure for us to have Patreon rewards which are, you know, novellas and puzzles, but this is what we've got, and I think the novella is going to be absolutely, well, it's going to be very, very popular as well. So it does feature mention of someone called Mark and someone called Simon as well. But I don't know what happens at the end, so I will reveal no spoilers. But anyway, the following people managed to solve the whole of the April reward, the Sudoku Skunkworks Nightmare on Sudoku Street. Very well done to Nicholas Hopkins, Andy Child, Melissa Hernandez, Matt Hayward. Lenny Bruce is not afraid of this nightmare, is he, Matt? I did appreciate the reference. Casey Bell, James Stinchcombe, Jim Flanagan, Debbie Fisher, Angus Alderman, Ferdinand Bont, Kirsten Gilbert, Mark Richardson, Edwin van der Eyde, I think, Nick Calderwood, Neil Harrington, Michael Lieberman, Jay and Parika, and Yannick Tremblay. All of you sent in the correct entries, and that means you're all superb solvers, one and all. But now let us turn our attention to Tallcat and see if I can make his birthday better by solving round the houses. So we've gone through the rules. We've basically got to draw a loop through the cages. What else was the rules? The cage totals gives so one cell, it said. Did it say it? No, it said at least one cell in each cage is not visited by the loop. So let's go back to loop. Do I want orange loop today or black loop? Red loop. Might have red loop. I'm going to have red loop today. And what we're told is that we're always going to have to leave one cell in each cage at least unlooped. So I'm just I'm moseying my way through the grid, trying to. That's broken. I don't know, something like this is going to be how it's going to look. Let's restart. Is the clock running? The clock is running. Everything is good in the world. Now, with that said, do have a go. The way to play is to click the link under the video as usual. But now I get to play. Let's get cracking. And the way we're going to get cracking is... I haven't got a clue, actually. The cage totals, I'm guessing, are... Well, I don't know. I don't know where to start. So I'm just going to say something about this 22 cage. This 22 cage has to have at least... No, it has to have exactly, I was going to say at least 3 of its cells on the loop, but it's exactly 3 of its cells on the loop, isn't it? Because at least 1 cell in each cage is not visited by the loop. So, and you can't make 22 with only 2 cells. That's not going to work. So I was wondering why my phone was buzzing at me. So exactly 3 cells of this sort of Tetris-shaped cage have to be on the loop. I don't know what that means. Exactly 2 of the 11 cage have to be on the loop again, because we couldn't just put 1 cell on the loop and make it add up to 11, because we're only using normal Sudoku digits. You see my eyes flick to the instructions there just to check that assumption was valid. I think it is. 19, you can't do that in 2 digits or 1 digit. So this has got 3 cells on the loop. 15 has got 2 cells on the loop. Yeah, okay, this is all very interesting, Simon, but how do you actually start this? Tallcat's even given me a digit today, which is an unusual phenomenon in most cracking the cryptic puzzles nowadays. I want to say that cell has to be on the loop. Yes, if that 13 in 3 cells, we know 2 of the cells exactly in this 13 cage are loop cells. So if we made this one not loop, the loop would enter row 9, column 1, and then it couldn't get out because it's an orthogonally connected loop. So we're not allowed to do that because these 2 cells, row 9, column 1 and row 8, column 2, are not orthogonally connected. They only connect diagonally. So this cell is definitely part of the loop. Now, the question then is, do we have a colour for that, or do we have a... See, I'm just a bit sceptical about using massive circles and massive X's. They seem very bold. I want to record the fact that this cell is on the loop. I'll use blue. Blue will be my colour for cells that are on the loop. I almost feel I've missed something about this. I almost feel I don't understand how this can possibly solve. How? I don't understand how I can get a grip on this at all. Let me just, right, I need to connect some cells in the grid to form an orthogonally connected loop that must pass through every cage in the grid exactly once. Oh, right. Oh my goodness me. Okay, I'd missed an implication of the rules. We used to have an expression. I have to be a bit careful how I reframe the expression. RTQ, let's call it RTQ. It used to have an extra initial in that acronym. Read the question, and that's good advice, especially for me when I'm trying to do these puzzles, because there is a huge part of the rule set that I had. It's not that I didn't read it. I did read it, but I didn't understand the implication of it until I reread it. Right. Okay, so the key part of it is it says connect some cells in the grid to form an orthogonally connected loop that must pass through every cage in the grid exactly once. Now, that means, I'm just trying to pick a good cage. Let's look at this 15 cage. Now, when I was thinking about it before, I had been thinking these two could have been on the loop and this one would be not on the loop, say. Now, in that case, the rules actually are telling us that that doesn't work. That's impossible. Because if we do this, watch what would happen. How many times has the loop entered this 15 cage now? And it depends, obviously, it sort of depends, but you can see that the boundary of this cage is cut 4 times. But the rules are telling us that the boundary of each cage must only be cut twice. There must be an entry into a cage for the loop, and there must be an exit from the cage for the loop, and that's all. So this doesn't work. And that's going to be, well, let's start with this cage. It means this cell must be part of the loop. We know that this cage's dimensions are that 2 cells in it are on the loop and 1 is out. And we can't leave this one out, so that becomes blue. And we're going to be able to do this a lot, I think. I want to say this 11 cage. Again, it's got this profile, hasn't it, where 2 of its cells are loop cells and 1 is not. And we can't leave that one out without isolating this cell in the corner. Right, okay, and the 19 cage here, that needs 3 of its cells to be loop. And again, what we can't do is we can't have that pattern. Because in order to have this pattern, we will have four piercings of the cage, and that we can't have an overabundance of piercings today. So these 2 squares must clearly be on the loop. 18, you can't do that in 2 cells, so these 2 cells need to be on the loop. Now, 23, you need at least 3 cells for, so that cell's got to be on the loop. Because whether we come in from this point or this point, we're always going to reach this point. 22, yes, okay, so we know that those 2 have to be on the loop. 12, again, at least 2 of these cells have to be on, so that has to be on the loop. 12 again, that's got to be on the loop. 11 again, that's got to be on the loop. Now 13 could just be 2 cells, couldn't it? So I don't think I can do any shading in that one. I might be wrong. Okay, so that's got us somewhere. No. What's the logic puzzle that has this constraint? There is a loop built. It's Country Road, I want to say. I think it's a Country Road loop puzzle that has that has this sort of profile where it has rectangular blocks in the grid, and you're only allowed to enter each block and then exit the block. You can't sort of re-enter the block, and that is what is going on in this puzzle. Now, I've just realised something then about this corner, because how can we ever visit this corner of the grid with the loop? Let's have a think about how that would work. The loop would have to do this. Well, it's still got to exit from the 4 cage, because it can't just live in the 4 cage without creating a very small and silly loop, which is not going to work because we know that each cage in the grid is visited by the loop. So we can't do this. So this corner cell is not it's not loopable, which means that I need to, what was I going to make it grey, I think, wasn't I? My grey was going to be my, see, I'm just worried about our colourblind viewers. Maybe I should make it, I'll make it orange, actually. I think blue and orange are the most colourblind, sort of discernible colours. And I should only need 2 colours today, shouldn't I? I've got loop cells and I've got non-loop cells. So what's going on in this cage then? that cell's blue, I want to say. Because how could that not be blue? If that was orange, one of these needs to be blue, but you could never get the loop out of that cell, right? So this cell's blue, but we don't know whether this is just a 4 on its own, because 4 is so small as a number, we could just have this cell being the loop and these both being orange, and then the loop. Oh no, we can't, that's going to break. This is lovely. Oh, Tallcat, you are a clever man. Right. Okay, let me explain what I've just noticed. If we are saying that in this 4 cage, we're doing this. Oh, my phone's going crazy. It's one of these WhatsApp attacks where basically it pings me all the time. It's not important, but look, if these two are both not in, then we have to do this to get to this blue cell, and now we've got the problem with the 10 cage. We can't leave the 10 cage because it's already been pierced twice, and we're not allowed to have an overabundance of piercings. So what we've got to do, well, okay, I don't quite know what we've got to do, except I now know that the 4 cage is visited by 2 cells to make its count of 4, because we can't only have this cell in. Therefore, one of these squares is a 1 or a 3, and only one of these squares is orange. Right, okay, and we can do stuff with this actually now, because we've got to be very careful. And that's because if we consider the nature now of row 2, column 2, we can say something quite interesting about it. There is going to be a piercing of this 10 cage coming out of this cell. Because imagine this was the way that this 4 cage worked. So it had these 2 cells on the loop, this one not in the loop. Well, clearly we've got to leave the 4 cage from this 1 3 cage here, from row 2 column 2. The same would be true if this was blue. We still have to leave the cage here. So the only way we can leave the cage is to go into the 10 cage. But that means that the loop cannot enter the 10 cage again anytime soon from, say, this cell. But it would, in fact it would in this version. If we did this, we can go another cell. We'd have to go another cell in the 15 cage because we have to get to a count of 15 before we leave the 15 cage. So we get here, but we know this can't be in the loop now, because otherwise all 3 cells of the 15 cage are in the loop. So we'd have to do this and enter the 10 cage as a second piercing of the cage, and we're going to get a tiny loop again. We don't want tiny loops, we want great big loops. So what we can't do is make this square blue. This has got to be orange, this has got to be blue, which means it's a 1 or a 3, which means this is not a 1 or a 3. Now we've got a corner of the loop, and corners of loops are very welcome. So we have to do this. We can't enter the 10 cage here, because we know we're going to enter the 10 cage here, and we'd have the same problem we've just looked at. So we now enter the 18 cage, which makes this square, well, it makes both of these squares blue, but now that square is most certainly orange. And we have to stay in the 18 cage until we leave it. And we know we can't leave it into the 10 cage, because then we're going to create a tiny loop again. So we've got to go down. Okay. Don't know what we then do. Well, I say I don't know what we then do, but I can see we've got exactly the same problem in box 7 that we had in box 1, in the sense that if we take the corner cell in the loop, then we've got that pattern, and we enter the 4 cage, and we've pierced the 4 cage twice, so we can't leave it again, and we're going to get a small loop, and a loop indeed that's going to have 3 cells in it, which we couldn't make 3 different numbers add up to 4. So that's most certainly wrong, which means this square is orange, this square is blue, that's a corner. So we've now entered the 4 cage. Well, we can't go up, because that's going to give us too many 1s and 3s in the column. So what I'm thinking is, if the loop, having entered here, this square is definitely blue, but if it did come to this cell, this would be a 1-3 pair to add up to 4, and this square would have no value. So I think that has to be orange, but making this orange rules out the rest of the 4 cage from being reached, which means this square is never reached, and the loop turns immediately at the bottom and does this. The loop must not close until it gets up there. Oh, this is just beautiful. I love puzzles like this because they're so interesting to solve. Now, hang on, what's going on now? Yes. No. Well, yeah, no, okay. That can't go up. If we go up, we know this cell has to be reached because we've got to get to a count of 3 cells at least in the 23 cage, and that then we're going to close the loop again. So this, we can sort of put an X on this boundary. We have to continue. Okay. We have to continue, and then we're going to go into the 22 cage, aren't we, as the next loop segment from this cell here, which needs to turn blue. Okay, so how would it work if we went straight on with the loop? We can't do that, because then we can't take this cell, or the entirety of this cage would be connected. So we'd enter there, and now we can't avoid this loop closing. So this doesn't enter there, so it enters there, and we must take 3 cells of the 22 before we leave, so it has to do this. Now we can't take all 3 cells of the 12 cage, so we must stay in the 12 cage until we're forced to leave it. These 2 squares are now definitely orange. This is it's actually, I was going to use the phrase, it's going very smoothly. I should never say anything like that, especially not in a Tallcat puzzle. Okay, so we've entered the 14 cage. We've achieved a piercing of our 14 cage, but 14 could be 2 cells or 3 cells. It can't be 1 cell, so that square's got to be off limits for the loop. We can't just leave the 14 cage and write 14 into this cell. That would be clearly preposterous. I feel like I should know. Oh, I see. I do know. Right, let's consider this loop bit now. Well, where's this going? Well, it's almost got penned in. It's got to get out, and it's going to enter the 23 cage, and we know it must reach this cell at least. So it does that. Yeah, okay. Now if it took another cell of the 23 cage, the only way of connecting or getting this out would be to take the whole of the 23 cage, which won't work. So we must connect here. This is just brilliant. Now these have to turn. All of this turns blue. This must be orange. This cell's never reached by the loop. And okay, so therefore what do we know? We've got a digit. That's got to be a 4 in this cage. It's the only blue cell. These add up to 13, so they're not 4, 9. That's either 5, 8 or 6, 7. This is 3 cells that add up to 23. Using different digits, that must be 6, 8, 9. This is 3 cells adding up to 22, so that needs to have a 9 in it. These 3 cells add up to 18. And okay, and what's going on at the top of the grid then? So we've got decisions to make now, haven't we, about how we move in and out of the 15 cage, in and out of the 19 cage, and especially in and out of this 10 cage. I know the next cell on the loop is into the 10 cage. But I don't think I can... I was wondering whether... the existence of this 1-3 pair, is that telling me... I think it is telling me something about the 10 cage. I just can't quite get my head around exactly how it would work. Why couldn't I have, say, a 2-cell sequence exiting here? Oh, I suppose... oh, okay. Right. The point is connectivity to the 15 cage. Yes, all right. I don't know how the 15 cage works yet. Either this square is blue, which will create a corner, and the 15 cage will join to the 10 cage here, across this boundary, or this square is orange and this square is blue, in which case there's a corner here of the loop, and the 15 cage joins to the 10 cage across this boundary. So the 15 cage does join to the 10 cage, and we know that the 4 cage does join to the 10 cage. So whatever happens to the loop once it enters the 10 cage, here or here, it does then visit the 15 cage directly. Which I think means that this cell is definitely not on the loop, because I can't get to this cell and then get to that cell. Now, okay, so if the loop did go down like this, and then, but given we've worked out it has to then enter the 15 cage, that doesn't work, does it? Because that's taking 3 cells at least in box 1, which have to add up to 10. Well, the only way of doing that without using a 1 is 2, 3 and 5, but we're not allowed to use a 3 either. So this can't work, and if we take even more cells it can't work, because we'd have to make these a 1, 2, 3, 4 quadruple without being able to use 1 or 3 in any of them. So we can't go down, so we must go across, and that means we can't go down because we need to enter the 15 cage directly, so we must go across again because we need a 2-cell sequence, and then we must go up, and then we must go across, and then we're going into the 19 cage. I don't know how we're doing that yet, but we can do some more shading. So this is all blue. These add up to 10, and they're not 1, 9 or 3, 7, so this is either 2, 8 or 4, 6. The 15 cage, which is now these 2 cells making up 15, has got to be either 6, 9 or 7, 8. Oh, I see. This works as well. Okay, so how does the loop go here? It can't go there. Because if it goes there, we have to stay in the cage until we've picked up at least 3 cells, and we're going to find ourselves stranded here, not being allowed to come to this cell because we take the whole cage, and needing to form a loop, and those two things are contradictory. So we must exit, stay in, we need at least 3 cells, so we've then got to go down and out, and there we go, 2 more loop cells earned. This square is now orange. These 3 squares add up to 19, and those 2 squares add up to 15, and that means those 5 squares add up to 34, and there's only one way of making 34 in 5 cells, and that is with 4, 6, 7, 8 and 9. So there's definitely a... oh, I see. Okay, so there's definitely a 4 in this sequence of 3 cells in the 19 cage, and then there's going to be 2 digits that add up to 15, and there's going to be 2 digits here that add up to 15. So if this was 6, 9, then there would be a 7, 8 hidden in these 3 cells somehow. But that means this cell is 2, isn't it? It can't be 4, 6 or 8. That is a 2. This is an 8. This is not an 8. These squares are, I want to say 1, 3 and 5, which means we've got a 1, 3, Hang on, we've got 1s and 3s at the top, but that's not a 3. We have got the opportunity for a 3 in the corner. Now, can we rule some of this? This can't be loop because it would be an isolated strand. This, if this is loop, it's a corner. Don't know about that. I don't think we can tell one way or the other. Right. Oh, hang on. Look at this 6, 8, 9 triple. There's definitely an 8 on the left side of it, so that square's not an 8. These squares are not 8. So there's an 8 in one of these squares. 8 over here. Possibly in the 8 cage. Oh, that looks quite tempting, doesn't it? So there's possibly an 8 in the 8 cage. Now, if that's on the loop, it would be the only cell of the 8 cage that is... okay, so normally when you see a 3-cell 8 cage in a killer Sudoku, you think, it's either 125 or 134, but here we know one of the cells is blank at least. So, if 2 of the cells are not on the loop, there is an 8 in the cage. That looks like where we're headed. But if there are 2 loop cells in that 8 cage, then it can't be 1, 7 or 3, 5, so it has to be 2, 6. Can't immediately rule that out, which probably means I can, but I can't see how to do it. Okay, therefore, right, what do I need to look at next? We've almost got... No, we haven't almost got... I was about to say, obviously this triple is either 5, 8, 9 or 9, 6, 7. But I don't think there's enough real estate of high numbers in column 6. I know that's... Oh, that can't be a 1. This cell is on the loop. And if it was a 1, because we know there is only 2 cells in the 11 cage that are on the loop, if there's a 1 on the loop, the other cell would have to be a 10, and that's not going to work. So it's not a that's not a 3 either. That is a 3 in the corner, I think. If that was, that has to be on the loop. We work that out, and if it's a 3, given there's only 2 cells in there that are on the loop, it would be a 3-8 pair, but the 8 isn't available for the 11 cage, so that cannot be a 3, and I think that means this is a 3. And if we put it in, are we going to get the party? I don't know. No. Oh, yeah, there's a little pause, a pregnant pause, and we got one. So, that's 3 in the corner, that's 3 in the spotlight, losing its religion. Right, so this can't now be on the loop, can it? Because I'd have the same problem. This would have to be an 8. So that's now suddenly become orange. This has become blue. We can see that that's a corner of the loop. Now, do we have to go into the 8 cage there? Do we have to do that, or this, or that, or can we do this? And the answer is, I don't know. I don't think we have to go into the 8 cage. Oh, I see. This is a 1 by the power of the logic that we've just been doing. That's absolutely hopeless. The 22 cage definitely doesn't have a 1 in it. These 2 squares have a legion of options, I think. The only thing they can't be is 3, 8. Wow. Okay. Let me think about this. 3. Okay, maybe it's Sudoku. 3 at the bottom of column 8 is in one of 3 places. Is there somewhere we can deny it? If it's in the 12 cage, actually if it's in the 12 cage, you can't put the 3 here. Because this would be a 9 to add up to 12, but that 9 would see the whole of the 22 cage and rule 9 out. So that's not a 3. But if this was a 3 and this was a 9, this would be a 9. That would not be a 9. What are the... Oh, there's no 9 down here already. What about if this is a 3? Oh, that doesn't... That feels like it's very flexible, actually. Wow. This square can't be loop. It would be isolated. I think I've missed something here. Let's just take an audit of what we've done. We've got those 3 adding up to 18. But okay, I mean, even if this is a 9, we don't know there's an 8 in that cage because it could be 5, 6, 7. Wow. What am I meant to do here? Is there some way to prove that this is at least a 3-cell sequence? Because given we've entered the 14 cage here, if it's a 3-cell sequence, that must be the final blue cell. Because we're going to have to wiggle in one direction or the other. Why couldn't this be 6, 8 or 5, 9? No reason at all. I don't think there's a reason. This one we know is on the loop. Oh, here's a little point. I can't... If this cell was orange, that doesn't work, does it? Because that creates a corner of the loop here that's going to fill the 11 cage with loop, and that's definitely not allowed. So that's blue. Yeah, okay, okay. Not only is that blue, but we can go further than that. We can say that's a loop segment because it's the same effect if I make this an X. I'm forcing a corner where there can't be one. So that's a loop segment. Now that's beautiful for the 14 cage because now the 14 cage is 3 cells adding up to 14. I say it's beautiful. I mean, it's loosely beautiful. It's sort of, you know, it's a relaxed beautiful. It doesn't try very hard, but it is beautiful. But unfortunately, knowing the nature of its beauty is slightly more tricky. 3 cells adding up to 14 is almost very average because 3, you know, the average Sudoku digit is 5, and 3 times 5 is 15, which is very near 14. So, okay, so it either does this and wiggles, or it does that and wiggles, and either way, it enters the 11 cage, and the 11 cage then either does this or this. But if it goes up, it doesn't even have to enter the 13 cage directly. We could be doing ultra wiggling. I don't know if that's possible, what I just did, but it feels like it might be. Wow. What on earth am I meant to do here? So the loop goes from the 14 cage to the 11 cage. Is there something I can say about that? So the loop doesn't go from the 14 cage to the 12 cage. Okay, so I can put that in. Right, so there's something going on here as well, isn't there? I'm just thinking about this business of creating corners. If that's a corner, if this blue cell is a corner, I take the whole of the 12 cage with the loop. So that is not a corner, so there's a segment that comes out here, which is definitely a segment we didn't know about before. So we also know that that's not a conceivable junction. So okay, so if the 12 cage does go, if it goes straight on, that's going to force this. How do you then ever visit the 13 cage? You'd have to do that. It's not impossible with a 5 here and an 8 here, I don't think. Ah, bobbins, I'm not sure. I don't think that I can rule that out. At least it's not obvious to me how I rule that out. What about if... okay, this cell is definitely not on the loop, is it? Because I can't enter this 14 cage. It's already been perforated twice. We can't perforate it a third time. That would be quite ludicrous. So if this is a corner, then we go into the 8 cage. We go into the... Yeah, we go in... That's interesting. So if this is on the loop, we go into the 8 cage in a place where the 8 cage would have to be a 2-6 pair, because we can't just go into the 8 cage and then get out of it straight away, because we're not allowed to do things like this. We'd have to take another cell. So that would put this, that would make this cell an 8. No, that's wrong. That's actually wrong. What I just said, if we did that, these could add up to 2, 6, and that could be an 8. So that's even more. That's just me gibbering. Wow, I don't know. I don't know how to do this. Don't think I can pull the same trick with this 8 cage by doing that junction, because I don't know at the moment any cell within that 8 cage that's actually blue, because this is one of these cages that could just be a single total. Oh. Okay, well, that's mildly interesting as a thought, actually. How is this cage a single 8? Because it's not a single 8 there, is it? Because then you could never get in and out of this square. So if it is a single 8, it's always a single 8 here. So this would be blue. Hang on a minute. Right, that doesn't work. This is difficult though. It's so difficult, I think this might not be what I meant to do. The reason I don't think this is on the loop and an 8 is I don't think I can make this column add up anymore. And that's because if this is an 8, this cell is orange now. And that means I can never visit this cell with the loop, because I'd have to re-enter the 12 cage, which means those two squares are both blue. But now this column has two 12s and an 11 and an 8. And that means the other two cells, I think, have to add up to 2, but I'm just going to check that maths. So if that's 12 and that's 12, that's 24, 35, 43, and I've still got these two cells to account for, and they have to add up to 2 because of a secret that I only tell my favourite people. But if you're still with me after 49 minutes of this video, of course you're in that coterie of people. Yeah, because the secret is the following. Just don't tell anyone. Don't let anyone else know. A whole row sorry, a whole column indeed, a whole row or a whole box of a Sudoku by the rules of Sudoku contains the digits 1 to 9 once each. If you add up the digits 1 to 9, you get 45. So I know this column adds to 45 altogether, and therefore I cannot make those 7 cells add up to 43, because these 2 cells would have to add up to 2, which would mean they would both be 1. And if they're both 1, we break the rules of Sudoku. So I think what we can do, well, I can say that, alright, what we can say is this is not a solitary 8 on the path. So I'm not saying there's not an 8 in this cage, unfortunately. There could still be an 8 in the cage, but there must be a 2 and a 6 in that cage, and they are on the path. And if they're on the path, and there are 2 of them, and there are, that is on the path. And if that's on the path, I cannot make this an X, can I? Because it would be a corner of the loop, and that would put 3 cells on the path in the 8. So we have to do that, which gives us another cell here, which is on the loop. And this square has to be a 2 or a 6 and is not an 8. But that doesn't... I don't think that does very much at all. I mean, it's a beautiful sort of series of thoughts. Oh, I see. Hang on. Now, how do I make this 11 thing work? Ah, that's lovely. Okay. So now I've worked out there's a 2 and a 6 in the 8 cage. How by Sudoku can I make 2 cells add up to 11? I can't use 2, 9, 3, 8 or 5, 6. It's only one way. That's 4, 7. Which means I've now got 4s and 7s over here in row 3, look. Although I don't think that's very interesting. I'm not sure. Oh, right. More interesting for the 12 cage down here, because these squares can't be 4, 8 or 5, 7, so they are 3, 9, and we know the order. So that's 3, that's 9, that's 9. This is no longer 9. Whoa, it's no longer 9. So there's a 9 in one of those squares. I thought that was going to be really profitable. I don't think it is, actually. Oh, Bobbins McBobbins face. How are we meant to... These 2 squares are either 5, 8 or 6, 7. They add up to 13. This square is not a 3. Sorry, I'm sure many of you are shouting at your screens at this moment, wondering what on earth I'm doing. I'm just trying to get my head around. Okay, I can't make this 5, 8, I don't think. If this is 5, 8, I'm having to squeeze 5 and 8 and 2 and 6 into this 8 cage, and that's far too many digits given we don't have any Schrödinger cells today, i.e. cells that can be 2 things at the same time. So that has got to be 6, 7, which means, see, that's it. That feels like it should do something, but it doesn't. It doesn't tell me where the 8 is. This is completely perplexing. Oh, okay, this isn't 6, 7 now, because that would clash here. So this is now 5, 8. Okay. Alright, so we can do some more Sudoku in box 7. 8 is now almost locked into my 18 cage. This is baffling. What on earth am I meant to do with this? I was going along really nicely and everything was flowing, and now I've just hit an absolute brick wall. See, if that goes upwards. I see. Right. Okay. So again, I think I've not concentrated hard enough on column 8. I can't make this blue, because if this is blue, this domino adds up to 12, and it can't be 3, 9, 4, 8, or 5, 7. So in fact, I do know, therefore, that this is blue, and you can see that has created a rather beautiful corner of the loop, which means this square here has got to be orange, and these two squares add up to 12, but they don't use 3, 9. So this is 4, 8, or 5, 7. This square can't be 4 or 7, so this square is 4 or 7. And this square is 5 or 8. I don't believe it. Okay, and then we run into this square, and either this is 2, or if this was... Okay, so if this was on the loop, it would be a 6. This would be a 2. Five is in one of those two squares in this box. One 3 pair here. 1 3. No, I don't think this is resolved at all. I know that 6 is in here. I suppose, know that one of these 3 squares is a 7. Oh, I'm going to have too many loop segments, aren't I? Right, I see. Okay, let's have a quick look at loopage down here. If the loop continues into the 11 cage, we know it'll close like this. But how do we then visit the 13 cage? Only with this. But now we've got this, we create a little loop, a little ocean of, or a little lake of loop in the middle of the grid. We're meant to create one loop, not many loops. So that's rather clever, or rather interesting, because that means this, well, it means this doesn't just go in here. So it must go up, which means this square becomes blue. So we are going to have to go. The thing is, I can't see how I know. I now know I go from the 11 into the 13, but I don't know how I do that. Oh, unless, has 5, 8 been ruled out by any of the machinations I've been going through? 5, 8 in this domino, is that impossible for some reason? I don't think so. Okay, so although we've just extended the loop slightly, it doesn't do anything for us. Wow. Wow. Oh, 9, look, can come out of these squares up at the top. Is there some magic we can perform here? Oh, yes there is. Oh, good grief. Right, that's beautiful. Absolutely stunning logic. Right. Look at this triple now. Now, what we said before is we know 4 is in one of these squares. So what if this was 4, 7, 8? With the 7 and the 8 adding up to the 15 we need, as well as the 4. Well, if it was, you can see the 8's going to be here, and this is going to be a 4, 7 pair, and that square's going to be broken. So you can't put 8 there, and if you can't put 8 there, you can't put 8 in there. anywhere. So 8 is in here. These two squares add up to 15. So they're 7 and 8, and we can do the order. Wow, 8, 7 go into the grid. Now where does 9 go in the box? It goes there. These two squares have got to be a 4, 6 pair. Now this might do some stuff. Well, it does some stuff in box 3. 7 and 4 go in. 4 and 6 go in. Okay, this might be helpful. Famous last words. What have we got going on in this row now? We've got 5 and 6 to place, I think. Well, that's disappointing. And over here we've got 2, 5 and 9. Can we get rid of anything? We can get rid of 5 from this one. Oh, good grief. Okay, so these squares up here are 2s, 6s and 9s. Oh, okay, so 9 in this box is now actually placed here. And that's moved the 8 over into this square. And if that's the case, this square is a 2. Wow. Now, yeah, this is good. Okay, so if we know that's the case, yeah, in fact, the simpler way of doing this is once I get 5 and 6 in here, I have to remember 6 is definitely in the 8 cage, isn't it? Because I need it on the loop, and that would have given me this 6 and 5 resolution. Therefore, this is on the loop. We can complete the loop at the top. I was about to say this can't be on the loop, but that's total and utter rubbish because it depends how my 13 cage is made up. I can say that's not on the loop. That is true. And I can say that's not on the loop. Now, what else can we do? We can say these squares are exactly equal to 4, 6 and 7, with that not allowed to be a 4. We can... I don't know. Okay, well, what's going on in column 7 now? We need 2, 4 and 8 into these squares. With, okay, this is 2, 4 or 8. Oh, I've got 8. I can do my 5 here. What did these have to? 5 and 7. There we go. We've known that for a moment or two. And in this column, we've not placed 1, 2 and 6. So let's actually fully pencil mark this and see what we can learn from doing such things. Okay, look at this. Now, this cage's options, which are fully now available to us, we can see every single cell. You can see there's only one odd digit, but we're adding up to an even total. So we can't use the 1 on the path, so that's not allowed to be 1. And so this is 2 or 6. Okay, so it can't be 6, because if it's 6, I can't make any other domino add up to 8, which is what I'd need to get to 14 without repeating the 6 and having 2, 6 as well as a 6. So this has got to be 2. And now I need 2 cells that add up to 12, and I can do it with 4, 8. And that's the only way I can do it. So this is a 4, 8 pair. And this square, well, hang on. I don't know about what this square is. But this is a 4, 8 pair. That needs to be looped. So that's on the loop. Good grief. And therefore this is not on the loop. It's nearly good, isn't it? It's really nearly. It's really very nearly. Well, this square's a 2, I suppose. Let's take advantage of that in case that does something. Four, 8 here, 2 here. Oh, come on. Okay, I don't know. Is there something we can say about... I don't know. 9 is in one of those 3 squares in box number 5. Box number 5 is really, really devoid of any sort of chromatic adornment, isn't it? And it would be nice to figure that out. Or is it... You see, the other thing it could be is look at some of these cages. They're deliberately spanning boxes. So, for example, are we meant to use the fact that this square cannot be 2 or 8 or something like that? Yeah, that can't be 2. Oh, look at that. 2 in this column is really nearly restricted. It could be here, I think. But it could be here. So it's got only 2 places left. I don't know. Okay, let's come back to this box then. What do we need in this box? We need 4, 8 and 9. Oh, yes. Okay, I can do something at last. Right. 9 in this cage. Where does it go? Over here. It's in this domino. So that can't be a 9. And that means this is a 9. And I've got a 4, 8 pair, which is lovely because that's going to resolve this digit. That's become an 8. Because this is a 6, 9 pair. And if this is a 6, 9 pair, that's a 1. Okay. So that's a 1 and that's a 6. And this might be helpful. I'm just sorry, I was just trying to do some Sudoku. I know it's almost against my religion to do that, but I was trying to do it briefly. Oh look, this is looking more and more like what have I been trying to rule out from this 5, 8 for ages? I haven't managed to do it yet. This digit is definitely on the path, so we need to investigate what this can be. It can be 2, 3, 5 and 7. But it's part of a... it's not 2, is it? Because it's part of a domino that adds up to 11. So if it was 2, it would need a 9, and the 9 is too far away. If it's 3, it needs an 8, which it could get. If it's 5, it needs a 6. Can this be... No, it can't get a 6 from anywhere. So this is 3 or 7. Can it get a 4? Only from here. So if it's 3, it needs 8 from here. If it's 7, it needs 4 from here. Both options apparently are available. And even whichever one it takes, it could still get to that square. So we could still have some loopy thing going on. Ah! Good grief. Okay. So what else should we do here? How else should we resolve things? Oh, hang on. No, hang on. I've got a 4 looking at that. I was just trying to suddenly think, should I pencil mark this with a 4 here? And I was thinking, I've got a 4, 8 pair. I can't do that. Right. Let me just double check this again. If this is 7, I can't put 4. No, I can't put 4 in either of those. That's 3. Right, and that's huge. Okay, well, huge in the sense that I need to accompany it with an 8, and apparently the only place I can get the 8 from is there. Right, so that becomes blue. This also becomes loop. We still don't know what's going on with the 13 cage, but we do, I think, get to do some pencil marking in row 6, where we still need to put 2 in, and 5, and 7. Somehow none of that is resolved. And in column 6 we need 1, 2, we also need 1, 2, 5 and 7. That's only 1, 5 or 7. That's only 1, 2 or 7. That one I fear can be well, actually that one can't be 7 because it sees a 7 down here. So that's so now I've got a 1, 5 pair. Okay, so this is 2 or 7. And this is 2 or 7. That sort of feels like that might matter, doesn't it? Do I know whether this is on the loop? Well, hang on. I do now know that I can't be making this domino add up to 13. So the only way of connecting this cell to this cell, given I'm not allowed to take both of those and add them up to 13, is to use 3 cells in this box, isn't it? And if I use 3 cells, both of these cells have to be on the loop, along with either this one or this one. This is definitely not on the loop. Oh, but hang on, if I've got to get to that square, how do I not take this square? I just want to check this. I just want to give this a moment, just to think about. If I don't come here, I have to go there, and then I have to go there, which doesn't work. Yes, okay. So I must, in fact, take all those 3 squares. This must not be on the loop. This is going to do it, I think, because now there's going to be some hue. In fact, we finished the loop as a result of that deduction. So all of those go in. These 3 squares have to add up to 13 without using 3. What can that digit be? Perhaps that's a question we should ask. It's either 1, 3, 4, or 6. It's not actually, it's not 3. Look, there's a 3 in the box. So it's 1, 4, or 6. So if it's 1, these have to add up to 12. This would have to be a 5. That doesn't work. If that's 1 and that's 5, that cell which is in the cage with it has no fill. So if this is 4, these add up to 9, and they couldn't be 3, 6, 4, 5. Oh, they'd have to be 2, 7. So if this is 4, this is 2, 7. Why doesn't that work? Not sure. Which probably means it's right. And if this is 6, then I need these to add up to 7. They'd have to be 2, 5. 6, 2, 5. So there's always a 2 in here. It's either 2, 7 or 2, 5. That means I've got a 2, 5, 7 triple. This square is not a 2. So these squares are from 1, 4, 6 and 9. And that square can't be 6 or 9, look, because it sees it. So that square is not 9. This is 1 or 4. It's still being recalcitrant, you know. This 8 is therefore not there. And the 8 is not there either. So we do have an 8 in this cage over here, which means this domino adds up to 10. Oh no, and it could be 1, 9 or 4, 6 at first blush. That can't be 4, so that can't be 6. Oh, I see, so 3 is placed. That's got to be a 3. No, I'm still not seeing how to do this. 1 in this box is in this domino, so that's not a 1. 2, 5, 7. I don't know. Is this... I've probably missed a cage now that I could use to... Oh, there's an 8 here, so this is an 8 and this is a 4. That's a 4. So the bottom of this column is 1, 5 and 8. So we can put the 8 in. And we get a 1, 5 pair. And look, that's a 1, 5 pair now in row 7. So we still need to put 3, 6, 7 and 9 in. So this is 3, 6 or 7. And these squares are 3, 6, 7 or 9. With that not allowed to be 3. Oh, this still feels tricky. It still feels like I'm not quite... haven't quite got to the nub of it. Is there... I know this is 5 or 7. There's definitely a 2 over here. Got this 1-5 pair going on. Oh, 5 and 1 are done over here. That's going to be helpful because that's going to get me this digit, which gets me that digit. That is helpful because now I can't put 5 in this domino. So this becomes 2, 7. That means it needs a 4 in order to add up to 13. That 4 is lovely. That gets me a 1, 4 pair in this box and a 6, 9 pair. And does that do it? Answer, no. I don't think it quite does. 4 and 7. Oh no, not 4 and 7. 4 and 5 into those squares. That becomes a 5. So this is not 5. This is a 3, 1 pair. Oh, it is sort of, it's gradually creaking, isn't it? It's trying to give us its secrets. It's trying, but it still hasn't given them all. This column needs 4 and 5 in it, which we can place. Is this done? I'm sure this is done somehow. I just can't see how to do it. Is this... No, that's not impacted by that, I don't think. I don't know. I don't know. I'm still not there. 2, 3, 6 and 7 down at the bottom here. Well, let's pencil mark everything. Let's see if we can figure this out. No. Oh, look, there's a 6, 9 pair. Oh, look at this one. So you can't put 6 into that domino. That gives me a 2, 7 pair in column 5. That makes this square a 3. So now, oopsie, this becomes 6, 7 and 9, which looks correct. So we can get rid of the 9 corner mark. So these squares have got to be a 1, 2, 3. Ah, I'm going to get another 3 in the corner. There, that's a 3 in the corner. I don't know if it gives me another. It does. It gives me another explosion of colour. That's another 3 in the corner. That's 3 in the spotlight, losing its religion. What's going on here? Ah, that square's become a 9. Okay. So this square's become a 6. That's become a 9. That's become a 6. That's become a 1. Oh yeah. Okay. It might be going now. Let's see. We've got a 1, 2 pair, which we can do in box number 7. That does the 2, 7 pair. That does the 7 here, look, which does this 2, which does this 7 and this 6. That square's got to be a 6 by Sudoku. The 7 and the 2 go in. The 4 and the 5 go in. This square, that's the only place for a 4 in box 1. This is the 6, this is the 7. That square's a 9 by Sudoku. This is a 7. Yeah, we're done, aren't we? 7, 6, 5, 9, 2. That's all the digits. It is a loop. Let's just double check the loop. The loop is complete. That's just a brilliant puzzle. That is a brilliant puzzle. Absolutely first class from Tallcat. Not easy, I will say that. Well, I loved the start. I love the fact that I actually made a mistake at the start, in the sense I didn't read the question very well, or I didn't appreciate the implication of the rules. The moment you realise that you can only enter a cage once, it becomes absolutely beautiful. For about 20 minutes, it was just gorgeous, you know, working out how the loop developed over the grid, and then I got really stuck on these final 3 columns. I'm almost sure that means that there's some clever way I could have got to this a lot more quickly. In the end, I sort of had to, I had to really think very hard about how column 8 worked. But even that, there's some fascinating deductions in there. It kept on being incredibly intricate, and the choices of the totals and how they interacted with each other. There was a lot of Sudoku. a lot of loop thinking. It's just a properly integrated puzzle, as you'd expect from a great master of the construction world. So Tallcat, happy birthday, my friend. I hope you had a brilliant day. I hope you enjoyed watching me do battle with your puzzle, and we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.